I think to talk a little bit more about this game, I'll just go in right into ranking my favorite character. I want to talk about the inventor. The inventor is the second to last, or second to last of the regular characters to unlock, and she plays pretty differently from the rest of the cast. The inventor has a gimmick where she can turn equipment into gadgets, and then you get to use that gadget every turn. But at the end of the fight, you scrap any piece of your equipment of your choice for a new gadget. And when I play, it's free abilities every turn, whether it does damage, or rolls another dice, or inflicts a status on an enemy. And there's some pretty powerful gadgets which you can get too. I know there are some people or rather a lot of people who don't like the inventor for that particular reason. You can't exactly build the same strategy because every time you fight, you're scrapping something in order to make another gadget, but I think I like the playstyle quite a lot. As long as you're finding enough extra equipment, one thing I find useful to do is to be able to store equipment in your pack. You have a limited amount of equipment you can fit in your arsenal, so you store the rest of it in your pack, and if you can save equipment there in order to have it for later fights, which I think is especially important for the inventor. For as powerful as I think the inventor is, I have suffered some of the most catastrophic losses with the inventor, like losing to multiple bosses, in particular Buster, which is the dragon, the first boss you fight. I think it's about the tutorial fight. So, had some incredibly high highs with the inventor and incredibly low lows. But I really like playing the inventor. The next character is Jester, which is the secret bonus character you unlock. You just have to play through episodes in the game. Eventually, you encounter the Jester enough times as a boss, and he decides that he wants to get out of the dungeons with you, so he becomes a playable character, and he's the sixth. Jester starts with a deck of cards that make up abilities he can use, and he goes through the deck one ability at a time. So the Jester's ability, he can normally discard a pair of matching cards. If you can't use them, you can discard them. But if you use the snap ability, now he can just use the cards for free, which can become an incredibly strong turn if you can happen to line up your cards in the right way. For number 3, I think I'd like to rate the Thief, which is the second character you access in the game. The Thief has a set of moves based around manipulating dice and breaking the dice up into small little values so that you can put a lot of them into the dagger, which is reusable, but it only takes up to a 3. You can find the daggers, which you start with the daggers. You can find poison equipment. You can find things like the crowbar, which reduce the countdown on abilities. You can find counterfeit to just give you an extra copy of your dice. So the warrior has a lot of ways to manipulate dice rolls into making lots of small rolls that chip away at the opponent with 100 little scratches. His ability is Unlucky Roll, which rolls 4 ones, which, like I said, he's the second character you access, so you get to find out ways in which it would be good to have low rolls. Split. Don't like that roll. Split this. That's better. Duplicate. Then 2 bumps. For number 4, I have the warrior, which is the first character you access. The warrior's limit break ability is Fury, which if you use it, you can immediately, it will use whatever equipment you used a second time. So the warrior gets a sword. It does whatever damage the die you put in. It does 1 to 6 damage for whichever dice you put in it. And if you put a 5, it'll do 5 damage. If you use Fury on the sword, it'll do 2 hits, each totaling to 10 damage. And the warrior also gets a reroll ability, which lets you reroll a die up to 3 times. Pretty straightforward character. After your first or second level up, you get the choice of either a boomerang or a spiked shield. The shield can either do damage or give you shield, or you can get the boomerang, which is one of the stronger pieces of equipment in the game, and one that I actually feel could be a bit overpowered. It feels a little bad to say that the robot is the second to worst character in the game, because I do like the way the robot plays, but I do think it's a bit difficult, at least for me, to learn. You access it as the third character right after the thief, and the robot has a CPU system of starting with about 8 to 10 notches. So you have to roll those dice and decide if it's worth it to try to roll another dice or to stop. If if the number you roll hits over the limit on your CPU, you get an error and you lose the ability to use all your equipment. So at the start of the game, at the start of a robot run, you might be able to take a gamble here or there at the very start, but what I find is the safest method is to roll a couple of dice, roll close to the limit, put your dice into the equipment, and then as you level up a couple times, your CPU counter increases, you get more equipment to manipulate your CPU count, and you especially get a pretty strong weapon, the jackpot sword. It does damage equal to the dice, so it can do as much as 6 damage for 1 dice, but it will do double damage on jackpot. But in that same level up, you can actually get the Buster Sword or something, which is equipment that is immune to errors. Last and unfortunately least is the Witch. The Witch is my least favorite character in the game, and that's not exactly uncommon for a lot of players, I find. The witch is also rated as the hardest character to play in the game, even more so than the jester or inventor. So the witch has a spell book, and if you place a die on the spell book, you get an access to the spell. You can have 4 spells active. Once you use up the spell, you lose it. It's like a spell slot in D&D. You have 3 dice to start out with, and so you have to place a dice on the spell book, and then you have to use a dice for the ability. So a lot of the time, I find that the witch just feels weaker because she requires more dice than any other character in order to attack. The spells that you have active, the spell slots, they will come back at the start of the turn. So every turn you have up to 4 spells that are ready to go, which means you can place dice in them right away. And then if you have more dice, you can place them on the spell book to make more spells. Out of the 6 that you have, it's one spell for every numbered face on a dice. So it's not impossible to play, but it is a bit trickier to figure out than any other character when you have 6 different spells and 4 slots, and there's so many possible combinations of dice that you can roll and abilities that you could have at any one time. And especially if you're trying to figure out if you want to get a new spell and you have to figure out which slot to overwrite. Do you want something like Cauldron, which will do 1 damage and reroll a dice? Do you want a slot for Infliction, which will do 3 damage for any dice you want, any dice you use? Or there's a lot of different equipment for the witch. Every character has a set of equipment they're more likely to find. So the witch definitely has the most decision making. And I also feel sometimes that the witch is the most prone to randomness. Dicey Dungeons definitely relies on a lot of randomness, a lot of random elements in the game. And sometimes you just lose. And the witch feels like she loses the most just because you didn't roll the right rolls or you didn't find the right equipment. To be fair, I'm pretty sure the witch is guaranteed in any run to find the Hall of Mirrors, which if you put a 6 in will give you an extra dice for that fight. So you always have to find and add the Hall of Mirrors to your roster. When a character levels up, they heal, they get more HP, they heal, and every character will either get an extra dice or some other choice of equipment. And for the witch, in addition to a couple of extra dice, she can get an extra prepared slot or an upgraded slot. Prepared slot is the witch starts with 1 prepared slot, but you can have more prepared slots, so you can set whatever spell you want to have from the start of the battle, or you can have an upgraded slot, which is the way that the witch gets upgraded equipment. She can't upgrade equipment naturally. So what I like to do is usually grab something like a second prepared slot, because usually having 2 of them is enough. An extra dice is pretty nice to have. And then for the last upgrade, if I can get it, I like a upgraded slot. Especially since, for example, the upgraded Hall of Mirrors spell will take any even dice, so you can get that going a lot easier. The Cauldron lets you reroll 2 dice for 1 use. The Magic Missile will go from doing 5 damage to 8 damage, so the upgraded spell slot is pretty good for the witch. And I've definitely had a lot of success with the witch, but I have absolutely had the most losses with the witch as well. Witch's limit break ability is Crystal Ball, roll 3 extra dice, which is just the thing you want for the witch, to roll as many dice as you possibly can. So there's 6 characters that you can play, each with different play styles in the game, but in addition to that, each character has 6 different episodes that you can play, and each episode gives a wide variety of rules, of different rules to make that particular run different. The thief, for example, has an episode where he can steal enemy equipment. The warrior has an episode where he has some pretty good upgraded equipment, but has a curse for the whole run. Curse might be one of the worst status effects to have in the game, so that makes that one pretty difficult to deal with. Every character has the elimination round where enemies have 10% more health, and also they have all upgraded weapons. So that ended up being, those were some pretty difficult rounds to play through. It effectively gives you 36 episodes. At this point, I've played and completed all but one of the bonus rounds, the episode 6. For the bonus round, you get extra rules that you have to pick up every level of the dungeon that you go down. In addition to that, I have quite a few of the achievements in the game, missing a few, including probably the hardest ones to clear the bonus round on hard mode, which gives you more rules to deal with. Not sure if I'll be able to clear those, but I'd like to give it a shot. Besides some of those more challenging plays, I also have all of the DLC in Dicey Dungeons. There's Halloween episodes for 3 of the characters, and there's also a reunion DLC, which is like the characters coming back into the dungeon. I don't see the point in playing that while I'm playing the main game. There is a bit of a story in the game where each of the characters is a human of some sort who's entered the dungeon in order to get some sort of wish granted. And they're all presided over by Lady Luck, who is the funniest character in the game. Lady Luck is this terrible devil-like figure who's got every contestant in the dungeon trapped for all eternity, playing, constantly trying to win against her game and get their wish granted, but she's literally the personification of luck, so nobody is able to win the rounds. Nobody can win, no matter how much they play. The last thing I'd like to mention is that Dicey Dungeons has quite a few mods that I've found. There's plenty of mods to give yourself more equipment, but I think the mods that I'm most interested in are the character mods, ones that let you play as different enemies in the game, or even a couple of new characters. Those are some mods that I want to try out, but for the time being, I have plenty of the main game left to play. And in fact, I've played so much of it that I think I might actually be able to talk a little bit about the enemies and kind of rank the enemies and how difficult they are to face in the game. I think that could be neat to try out. So, I'm not done with Dicey Dungeons by a long shot, but I have planned to put it down so I can move on to a different roguelike, because there's a lot of them that I want to try. And the only question I have now is, should I play Slay the Spire or Balatro?